We went through multiple conversations this morning about the content creation and the technology that goes behind this stuff. Now let's see how it does inside the buildings that these things are in. So I have a great group of panelists here. We'll start with Kristen and just go down the line, name, organization, and a little bit tidbit of what you guys do at your each respective organizations.
Awesome. Hi, I'm Kristen Connolly, Senior Director of Marketing for the Overwatch League. The Overwatch League is the first ever global city-based professional esports league, part of Activision Blizzard Esports, and I oversee our marketing and social media.
I'm Corey Dunn. I'm the now Chief Creative Officer over at Esports Stadium Arlington, also leading Esports Lock, which is really a bunch of content for all of esports. Short version.
I am Judd Hannigan with the CEO of Allied Esports. Allied Esports is really the esports arm of newly formed Allied Esports Entertainment, which is combined Allied Esports, our company, with World Poker Tour. And on the esports side, we are building we're really deep-rooted in a global network of esports infrastructure in the form of arenas and mobile solutions that ultimately are used to generate content around the world.
Hi, it's Bob Jordan with 1337 Facilities, a new startup essentially focusing on building, operating, and managing esports centers across universities first and then second in the commercial environment.
Hi everyone, Brian Marakian, Senior Principal with Populous. We're an architectural design practice that is specialized in sports entertainment venues for the duration really of the last 30 years. And we've been really focused on really over about the last half decade of where the world of esports is going and what that means for venues and infrastructure and how we bring the live experience to life. And so we're going to share out a little bit today, certainly on our perspective and a few recent projects. One that we've been involved with Corey and with the Overwatch, with a new venue that's being built and under construction now in Philadelphia. But very excited to be here.
Great, Ryan, you want to show that video of Esports Arlington, a little teaser, appetizer before we get started?
So this is just as a little bit of background. This is a project that we embarked on and opened this time last year. And we embarked on about a 6-month design and build project with Corey and his team. City of Arlington funded this project. This was a $14 million investment by the city. And really the goal here was to stake the flag in the center of the United States and create a really dynamic multi-purpose venue that can be a gaming center, can host premier events, can certainly host Overwatch events, and there's going to be some upcoming ones this year with the Dallas Fuel. And everything in between. They just hosted a fantastic the Esports Awards, which probably many of you saw, and all the way down to the mayor's address and having kids come through every day into their gaming center and the production studio environment. Simply New was a great partner in this process, and they can have all the great back house functionality as well too. But I think a really good example of an adaptive reuse project. I know many people in the industry are thinking about, like, what do we do in a retail environment? What could we do to extend or create a second life for a venue? And I think these guys did a great job with it. Was there a video that
you want to run the esports video? Cool.
Yeah.
like I said, we'll go a little bit deeper in that with Corey and Brian. But let's start from the start. Judd, Hyper Esports X Arena and the Luxor obviously was mentioned earlier, but when that thing was built, when that thing was constructed, when you guys went to Luxor, what do you think that's done to influence the rest of the esports community to, say, hey, we should start, making stuff for our teams and for our games?
Sure. I think that to get to there, you got to kind of see where we came from. We started in Beijing with our first arena there. Esports is, largely coming out of Asia and tremendous population and demand in China. And so we launched our first arena in Beijing and quickly began to expand out from there throughout the rest of the world with a footprint in Europe and North America. Really quickly, as we were building this property network, we realized we wanted a flagship. We wanted our own championship destination to be able to point to, and that would really inspire the rest of the world with excitement. And there was, it was a pretty short list of towns we wanted to go to and thought about, and really we found that Las Vegas could do that pretty well. So when we did it, we leveraged some of our past relationships on the World Poker Tour side of our business to open up a door with MGM Resorts and find the right venue for us. We landed on a place at Luxor, which really was perfect for the vision that we wanted to create. It was perfect from the size we were looking for, and also they had the right bones to create the right in-house experience, plus the production capabilities we wanted to give it. So that, as a concept, and to build that out, it was kind of somewhat of a bold move in late 2016, early 2017, to go that big and that bold. And I think that it's been exciting to see other folks come online and to see what elements that we did that kind of end up kind of bleeding into some ideas and concepts. But I think as more properties come online, we're just going to see more creativity and excitement. I think as we think down the line at our next builds, what are we going to take from what we've already done, or what we've been inspired by others to create, both in our network and outside of our network, and apply that going forward. I think the element of creativity, much like the whole gaming industry combined, is never going to stop on the infrastructure side.
Sure. Now, as we move forward with other, with other arenas like Corey's, Bob, before this thing gets built, what homework are you doing to know the audience, and what are you telling these companies before they actually start building itself?
Well, the first thing, and I'll have to couch this, is I came out of the traditional sports space, many decades of building large stadiums and arenas. And one of the things that first intrigued me about esports is that the questions that are being asked now in esports are very similar to the questions traditional sports teams are asking themselves probably 10, 15 years ago about who are our fans, what do they want, how do they want to be treated, what's a true engagement and an activation of those customer base, what is that? And I think what we've been doing in our first clients is really focusing in on is that there's not a wrong answer. It is go and find out. Now, here's a couple interesting things in that is that we did some focus groups with our first client, and we had some of the gamers would come in and some of the students were coming in. And I was like, what do you want? What's your highest level? And there was some blind studies that we did. Number one is that they wanted a place to be able to play on a high quality tourney level rig. That was number one. Number two, and it wasn't a big difference between number two, was a place to socialize with other gamers. So one of the things that we focus on, all of our concepts and all our designs, is that it's about play, but as soon as you're done playing, it's about being communal and then being able to have that interaction as part of that environment. As you'll see, as Brian talks about in their designs, is about how that comes together. And then we tell them is that flexibility has to be the next thing on the list. Is because it doesn't matter what game you're playing, whether it's 1v1, 6v6, it's a battle royale, whatever that is, you have to be adaptable to whatever that customer base or gaming base needs to be. So if you can check those boxes off, we'll build. It's easy to build after that fact, but you've got to be able to check those boxes off.
Exactly. Flexibility is key. So, Corey, you have a lot of stuff going on at Esports Stadium Arlington. Absolutely. Happy anniversary. Isn't it a year since the start?
Thank you. Yep.
You're welcome.
A year ago.
Okay, to the day, exactly, right? So, do us a favor. Can you reflect on the past year that you guys had, and on Bob's point, making it flexible in order to have different types of gameplay events and things like that?
Absolutely. So we've heard it multiple times throughout today about adaptability, flexibility, and going through a full year worth of time, being able to change based off the different types of events that we've had. I'll give you actual names and different games that we've gone through. So Face It was our very first big event, which you saw quite a bit of that in the video. That was a 5v5 Counter-Strike event. Shortly, we also had EA Madden Classic was there, so Joe Lynch is also in the house as well. They had the opportunity to come through, and we were able to modulate those desks that we showed there. They actually change, and we can reconfigure them as it makes sense. Because the reality is we needed different ways to be able to showcase players in their own light that made sense without dwarfing them. Because this is a 90-foot LED that we have in front of them. We need to make sure that the focus is still about the players without over dramatizing them in this small space on that stage. And so we really focused on how do we change the stage so it really fits within the right context. So we had Madden Classic there. That was 512 competitors that was there. So again, huge kudos to the EA team on that front. We've also been able to utilize a bunch of other use cases. So Dallas Fuel, we did not host an event there yet, which in February will host their very first Dallas Fuel homestand for 2020, which will be great for us. But the reality is it shows what type of impact that Overwatch does have, where we had 1,400 attendees show up for a watch party. So give you, again, a full different type of context of what really community-driven activations is all about, and that's what we continue to strive for. So we adapt throughout. I mean, we even had Esports Awards was on this past Saturday. So we had the likes of Dr. Disrespect was there on site. We had Hector Rodriguez, or Hex, was on site. We had several huge key figures. Nate Shot from 100 Thieves. These are all these different key figures that are in the esports industry was actually in our facility, and we're able to showcase, and every single one of them, as they came up to us, they said, "We love your venue." And the reality is it's the thought process that goes in it. And again, I will give kudos to Judd too. The reality is like we all learn from each other. We all learn through our experiences that we've had. HyperX Arena definitely has impacts, as well as all the additional esports events, whether it's from Face It or from ESL or from any other group like the Overwatch League. So there's definitely areas of influence, and as we see more venues in the future, it's going to be a culmination of all those ideas.
Okay, and the process to make that arena, you and Brian can discuss a bit further. What was the process like? Were there any challenges? Speaking of Judd of influence, how did you guys build that thing up?
Well, yeah, so it was a very fast-paced process.
Time, yep,
yeah,
there's one.
Lost a lot of sleep. It was a unique process in the sense that, as I mentioned earlier, it was an adaptive reuse. So, we came into the city of Arlington. They were sitting on an asset that was underperforming, frankly, and in a convention center right in the heart of our city of Arlington, though, in a great location. It was right near Cowboys Stadium, new ballpark under construction. There's a mixed-use development that just opened its doors, and it is right in the center of a metroplex, and 10 million people. And the demographic that you want to attract, and college students, and so it was. It all made sense, and with the city backing the project and the great work that Corey and his team were able to bring to the forefront in terms of programming it, operating it, managing, booking the events, and being able to have the support again of the city where they saw it as a true sort of asset to the community. Those were the real drivers, and we took a fast-paced approach to it. We designed the project in 6 months, which was incredible. 6 months from the point that we started designing to it was built. So it was a design, build, delivery, and Mark, he was part of this deal. We had a whole team that was basically living and working on site, and it was all leading up to a Face It event that opened the venue in November of last year. But again, I think it's a great sort of example of a venue that was designed and built for a formational industry, and one that's going to continue to grow and evolve and adapt over time. And new genres are going to emerge, new gaming cultures need to be supported, and new events need to be prepared for. And having a venue that's able to support all those things, to support that growth, and support a programming model that you want to ultimately have adapt and evolve over time is super essential. And I think that certainly you see that in Judd's venues. And he was truly a pioneer in this, started this whole industry. And Corey is, we learned a lot, frankly. But it's a place that brings community together at a community level and ultimately at a global level.
I think, sorry, Brian hit on some points that I just want to expand upon, which there are very few esports dedicated stadiums and arenas around the world. As mentioned, Arlington is one of those. The Philadelphia fusion of the Overwatch League is the other one that is breaking ground to launch in the coming years, the first ever one for Overwatch. But the reality that we face today, the Overwatch League, which started in 2017, we're headed into our third year, which is the first time that matches will be played in home markets around the world. So all 20 teams, as we kick off in February next year, are playing at arenas and stadiums and concert halls that aren't their own yet. We're looking forward, with Fusion being the first to break ground into that space. We're looking forward to that trend continuing, but in the meantime, what Brian talked about of how you make these arenas feel communal and feel authentic. That is the number one thing that's most important to esports fan, is that authenticity, that it feels like it's their event and they're with everyone like-minded of what they're rooting and cheering for. So programming all of those moments to make it feel unique and memorable is really what we strive for the Overwatch League to do, and you see a lot of different esports doing that as well. You can't just, particularly with the esports crowd, you can't just show up to the venue, even though the broadcast elements are fantastic and the viewing experience is so incredible. We know our fans, number one thing they enjoy most, we've done a lot of surveying after our big events, is the atmosphere and the energy and the vibe and the non-stop action, particularly as we approached grand finals the past 2 years. One in front of a sold-out crowd at Barclays Center in Brooklyn, the other at Wells Fargo Center, also sold out in Philadelphia, is how do you take every single moment, whether it be a fan fest outside or activations around the concourse or every single break during broadcast play, how do you do something that's engaging and fun and just keeps that vibe up the entire time?
I think to add to that's a very publisher-driven perspective, right? And I think that's something on the facility side, we need to deliver that experience for you, and we need to be able to deliver a unique experience to each publisher or third-party organizer that wants to come in. So the space always feels different and unique, and that's always a part of the challenge up front on the design side, is how is this going to feel special every time somebody new comes to town, so they don't feel like they're doing what somebody else just did. And I think that's a key component to the design of these facilities, and a lot of certainly the AV components that go into it to try to make it feel unique and different, and the modularity that, Bob, you're talking about, that flexibility to make it special every time somebody new comes in.
Sure, that's a good talking point. How are you keeping these fans engaged for 4 to 5 hours, however long this match is? So, Kristen, on the Overwatch League, what are you guys doing in terms of keeping them engaged in between matches, or just keeping people on the product?
Sure. So the first 2 seasons of the Overwatch League, we actually played right down the road at Blizzard Arena, Los Angeles, Burbank Studios, the old Jay Leno studios. And, to your point, the match play is a key part of it. Our matches are actually hours long each day because there's multiple matches within a single day. So our fans are there for 6-8 hours. So anything from music to activations to partners coming on board and sharing in on free things of giveaways or things to just engage with, to what we did at Grand Finals really is a whole nother level. That's our biggest event of the year. So for that, if you look at what we just did in Philadelphia for the 2019 Grand Finals, the game didn't start until 3 p.m., but starting at 10 a.m., we opened up a massive fan fest outside in the parking lots in which fans were lined up for an hour before. We had about 10 partner activations, live DJ, the marching band from the 76ers, fun activations such as Coca-Cola, where you could actually pose like Tracer, who is one of our main heroes, and get a fun photo. And that was all even before you got inside, which opened up at noon for VIP guests, kind of upgrading their package to meet pro players to 1 p.m. normal doors. Then we kicked off with our watch point, our pregame show. Then we had an entire opening act. Zed performed live. And that was all before the event even started at 3 p.m. And then, of course, it was about 2 solid hours of the actual sport. But that is what we strive to do, is even before you step in the doors, is start that experience early. And given that wasn't our arena, we took over the entire venue, from all of the signage to activations to clings on the floors and the walls, to make it feel like our own, which is actually something Bob and I used to work closely on MetLife Stadium together. I was at the Jets at the time, and we had the same challenge. So it's not unique to esports. It's how do you go into a shared venue, make it feel like your own, especially that things that you can only bring in for a couple hours that need to be shut down and turned over for the next event coming in, loading in the next day.
It sounds like it's the tailgate before the actual game starts. Corey.
Every fan loves that, right?
Exactly. Corey, what are you guys doing at Esports Stadium Arlington?
Well, one of the unique parts for us is, and Judd touched base on it briefly too, is the reality is that the venue needs to feel different for every single different group that comes in there. And so we coordinate with them early enough to be able to talk with them about all the different things that there are experientially to be able to handle, whether it's you've got the LED canvas that you have in front of you, the stage itself that can be changed over, but then there's different scenic elements that you can kind of build on top of. That helps all broadcast and production side. We then kind of help them engage a little bit further in talking about really the subject matter, the content, because that's what you were talking about, authenticity, right? You can have the most polished product in the world, but the reality is it's the content, the subject that actually matters the most. And we're seeing this with streaming today, right? We've seen people that have got a webcam and they're talking to it, and it's not the most high production value thing out there, but they have 70, 80,000 people watching them at one time. It's because the content is really what matters to them most. And so as long as you're hitting that perfectly, we're all going to have different attempts where we're going to be successful, and then there are going to be other areas where we're going to learn from our mistakes that we make. We're going to try different things, and that's all we can ask for. So from our standpoint, we look in being able to coordinate and work with different integration that we can. Earlier today, they talked about the lighting boards within Counter-Strike has API-driven components. We leverage those types of things as well within the facility. But again, it's also at the capabilities of the different games that we're working with.
Okay.
I'll give it from a slightly different perspective and talk about it from our own proprietary programming. Because we program our space, much like I think you guys do too, with when we don't have events or big events or publisher-driven, with our own community events. And, we really let the community kind of determine a little bit of our programming calendar. If you think about we have a few nights in the week that are quite successful for us, and Friday nights are Fortnite. Clearly there's a demand for Fortnite, and that audience and that scene has developed and grown exponentially since even we started with that night of the week. But even more important, we listened to the community and started a Mario Kart night. We call it Saturday Speedway, and it is the best night of the week as far as I'm concerned, because it is like a party. It is like being in a nightclub where there's a party going on where everybody gets a chance to compete on stage under the lights. So that type of engagement and type of feel is something that the venue lends itself to. But ultimately, we let the community kind of drive. We go where they go, and that's part of the kind of agnostic approach that we have as a venue, that we want to appeal to everybody, and we can flow with the trends in the industry overall.
Bob, what's 1337 doing in this space to kind of help?
Well, one of the things, I think these are, it's all phenomenal experiences, and one of the things that we're focusing in on as well is essentially what does the venue provide as the amenity? You can, like with tailgating, with pre-post, your programming of your event, but what does the venue do? And this is as granular as what is the food and beverage menu in the concession stands? Because you think if you go to a traditional sports event, all right, you're going to go to a hockey game, you're there for 2 hours, and let's say you're there for 3 hours after the doors, you have set breaks, different things like that. The games, esports throws a completely different element from length, breaks, different things like that. But it's also a different clientele. So what do they want to do? Invariably, if you have someone there that's a ticket holder for 4 hours, they're going to buy some food and bev, and they're going to buy some merch. All right, so let's maximize what that is by finding out what they really want. I'll use an example. Delaware North, which runs TD Garden in Boston, they did a championship last year, and they did a series of exit studies on the folks. Out of the 18 to 34, which is the prime demo, over 50% of the individuals that attended that championship had never been in Tea Garden before. Because this is in Boston with the Celtics and the Bruins. That is a completely new fan base. So from a venue design and operation perspective, you have to start taking that into account, is that this is a different model of supporting basic amenities for 3 to 4 hours, 5 hours, or 6 hours versus a very, very standardized repetition off of a traditional sports. So being open-minded and finding out what those things are, and again, it's finding out what the right answer is. It's by trying new things, trying different things. Don't get caught in a silo. Try new stuff and see what happens.
Sure, Brian, on Popular side, you guys have done a ton in traditional sports. What have you taken from the traditional side and kind of implemented it to the esports side of the sector?
It's a good question, and I think I would sort of expand a little bit on what Kristen was talking about. Ultimately at the end of the day, we've designed venues in major league ballparks and for the NFL and Olympic main stadiums, all sorts of things across the world. But what's unique about esports is that it's entirely the same in many respects. To what traditional sports fans want, and they want to be together. For a really great social experience, and they want to be together. They want to cheer for their favorite players and their favorite teams, and they want the same thing. And it's what makes us human, right? It's what's in our DNA. The same reason that somebody will go to an Overwatch event to watch their home team is the same reason that somebody wants to go to an Eagles game. And they want to sit next to somebody and be their best friend by the time that they end that event. And esports is unique, and certainly Bob kind of alluded to it. There's a different sort of cadence to the matches. There's different breaks in the action. There's all sorts of things I think around just kind of activation outside the venue itself, and things that we can really kind of key in on that are unique, differentiators in terms of food and beverage and merchandise and the way that we engage with technology and the way that we kind of like blend this virtual and the real world together. There's a lot of unique sort of nuances that I think these venues are going to present. But at the end of the day, it's still about bringing people together. And I think that, when we design venues, and whether they're stadium type experiences, the type of thing that we're doing in Philadelphia, or the types of things that we did, in Arlington, or the types of things that Judd has done over the years in his venues, ultimately it's about connecting with that community, creating a great socialized experience, and ultimately having a place that people authentically feel like it's their own. And you can program it any way that you want, and you can adapt it and evolve it, and culturally it connects with any type of genre or any type of event that you want to have, take place. But I think that that's really truly, if you look at the similarities, I really focus on the similarities. It's very much the same as traditional sports, and the attitude is the same, and people are the same.
Yeah, just to expand on that, I think he completely nailed all of those similarities, which we draw a lot on. I think there's two unique differences that are interesting. One is how much the esports audience embraces partners. That is off the charts we actually found a lot of research that our fans love the validity that big sponsors bring. So Coca-Cola, T-Mobile, State Farm, you name it, they pay attention to the activations, the pieces that they're sponsoring, which is just really unique and just hits on a lot of the positivity of the community within esports. And then secondarily, when you go to a traditional sporting event, you see a lot of people on their phone or looking down or chatting. When you go to an esports event, it's just incredible. Everyone is looking up. Their eyes are glued to the screen or looking at the stage. And we're talking, our average age is early 20s for our fans. So, the majority are between 18 and 35. Where can you find teenagers not looking at their phones, staring at the screen? So the opportunities that brings of how you program that stage, that's why our experience is so immersive. For the Overwatch League, even at Blizzard Arena, the stage wrapped around the arena, so it felt like you were just engulfed by the gameplay. I think that's something really unique that esports can deliver and do well, is just make you feel like you're totally immersed in that atmosphere, and the fans will keep their eyes glued to what's happening on the action.
guess it's a good time to go to the Fusion Arena that Kristen was alluding to. So I guess we should show that video first.
Sure,
and you can break
sure.
it down.
Yeah, and kind of like I did with our, let me just kind of give a little background. So this is a ground-up venue, $50 million in that vicinity. It's a joint venture between Comcast and Cordish, and it's right in the heart of the Philadelphia Sports District, right next to Wells Fargo, where the Overwatch Finals was held. I think what's unique about this venue is, first and foremost, if you had told me 3 or 4 years ago that we'd be designing and building a $50 million project, I probably would have said you're crazy. But that's how fast this industry is emerging, and so this is really unique. It's 3,500 seats. It's going to have a lot of unique, experiential sort of premium amenities. The technology is going to be off the charts with Comcast involved. The connectivity, the types of fan engagement components, and as it sort of links together with a broader scale entertainment strategy, and when you think about final events and things like that could be held like right down the road at Wells Fargo Center, it's all going to sort of dovetail together. But why don't we show the video and you'll kind of get a sneak peek. So this was at the groundbreaking, and Kristen, you were at that, right? Yeah.
Yep, end of September, right before Grand Finals.
So super exciting, and as I said, Comcast has made a big bet on esports, and buying in with the Philadelphia Fusion. They have a tremendous fan base, and it's an awesome city. And I think this venue really reflects the spirit of Philadelphia and their fans. So yeah, hard to believe, but that project will be opening in 2021. So right at the start of the upcoming Overwatch season.
It's crazy. You want to go a little bit deeper into what you guys have with the Loge boxes and stuff like that?
Yeah. So again, we're trying to really tap into this audience that is young, digitally savvy. It's interesting that you're exactly right. When they go to an event, though, they don't want to be on their phone. But what we've done is we've kind of taken some of the traditional sort of premium product model, and what you would see in an arena would be like a suite. Young audiences don't really love to be in those sort of places. They like to be in more just socialized environments. So I'm sure Judd can attest to this too. They like to be in more of like a bottle service type of environment where they can go and just hang out with their friends. And so we've designed these booths that are basically 10-person, 12-person boxes. And then they have this whole media console that they can go and they can basically customize their whole experience. So they can go in and they can follow a specific player. They can see data and stats in game. They can basically tap into their own feed. There's a lot of things that we want to, advance with Comcast around, like, well, how do we just create this better one-to-one connection between the fans and the players and the competition that's happening. So, those sort of things. There's going to be some unique F&B experiences. We're working around some app-based, food and beverage things where we have some automated, like an automat where they can, order, something on their mobile phone, and during a match they can go and it'll pop up in an automat style setting. There's going to be some great merch areas, and certainly the team will be training there as well too. So we've built out an elite training facility within the venue for the Fusion to train there. But the plaza is going to be great because it's a lot of place for experiential activation, places for brands to activate around. They're right in the midst right now of a lot of sponsorship procurement. And that's what fans are really going to love, is that before the event, during the event, after the event, and a lot of basically a platform for programming. So it's going to be exciting to see it come online.
We have about 5 minutes left, so before we get any further, any questions so far? I'm sure someone has a microphone. Anyone? Okay. On the cusp of 2020, Judd, is there a question somewhere? Oh, Ken, all right. The long walk to Ken.
So what about dedicated facilities? Are those a thing of the past? Are they too risky to say we're going to build a Fortnite-only environment? Is flexibility the key?
Is the question about, is there dedicated to one particular game? My personal opinion is you want to have flexibility and modularity, and it be a home that celebrates all gaming communities and not just one. Going all in on one, just like traditional sports, they're a little bit seasonal. Some of them publishers run seasonal stuff, but I think all in on one is risky if you're coming at it from just a pure venue side of the business.
Absolutely. So usually, basically, kind of painting the picture even further, right? AT&T Stadium, Dallas Cowboys. They've got 2 preseason games. They've got 8 home games, and maybe might make the playoffs. And that's all they have to be able to play. But they activate that facility every single day, and sometimes they activate it 3 times a day. And so the fact is that it can't. There's any venue cannot just be one thing. It has to be multiple things. So flexibility is absolutely key.
We've been to AT&T 4 times this year with our mobile truck solution for gaming activation. So yeah, understandable.
In the Overwatch League, that is the approach that a lot of our teams are taking, though, a dedicated facility just for that particular sport. But that does not include all of the activations that they'll be doing throughout the year. And particularly what's interesting, when we look at the Fusion Arena, that's seating 3,500, give or take. And it's such a unique size that there's a lot of opportunity to program that venue even outside of what they're doing for the Overwatch League, which is really cool. And our teams are running the gamut of the size. And I think that's still probably a little bit unfounded of what is the perfect size for an esports venue. It really differentiates different.
I think a lot of it's market-based, certainly. What a venue in Philly is going to be different than a venue in Toronto or one here in, LA or Orange County. I think what we're projecting for that venue is 180 dates. And, we're going to have the 20, Overwatch dates, but they're hopeful to bring all sorts of other sorts of premier, esports events. But, we've talked to Live Nation. It's going to be a great, live music venue. They're going to be able to use it for TED Talks. They'll be able to use it for corporate events. They'll be able to use it for watch parties, for Flyers games and Eagles, right? And electronic music and everything in between, all the way down to some dark dates where they'll just, basically remove all the seats on the floor and have, activations that they can build out where they can turn it into a gaming center. So I think, we've talked about flexibility being the key, a lot, certainly on this panel, but these venues, and where you're making the investment, in that case, $50 million into infrastructure, you've got to have a strategy around robust programming and thinking about it in a way that certainly you can have it geared towards maybe a title or a genre, but having the ability to come in and do secondary program is absolutely key.
Question in the back. Jason, you're getting your steps in, buddy.
Yeah, so when you're, obviously flexibility is a key component here, but let's just say that you've got a venue that you're maybe looking to upgrade in order to support esports events. Are there some foundational elements that should be present in any way, shape, or form that can help you to kind of build that foundation that then allows that flexibility to take place on top of it?
Flat floor and 4 walls and a roof. The thing is, this is kind of, again, coming from my perspective on this, is that one thing as I found is that esports is, because of the flexibilities that you want it to be as in basic as absolutely possible, is that we've got a couple buildings. I mean, frankly, our core and shell is a black floor, a black ceiling, black walls, a really cool lighting element, and then it's about the gaming after that with a lot of programmable video. So all of our sites are renovations of existing facilities. And so under that, it's basically is that we're coming in and saying you have unused real estate or you have square footage that we can apply a different revenue model to. That's what we're looking for. But the core and shell is very, very low. Connectivity is essential, obviously, but that's part of the production. But it's not egregious as part of your budget. You're looking at structured cabling, very simple, some fiber. You're looking at a decent network, a backhaul. You're in business.
Yeah, just to add to that, one of our first Overwatch events, World Cup in 2017, was in the Barker hangar. So literally a completely empty box. And as long as there's technology and connectivity, that's all you really need.
Yeah, one last thing is that one of our big things is pop-ups in racquetball courts. So that kind of gives you an idea is that you can convert, this is for universities and unused real estate. They always say, can you do something with a racquetball court? So you got 20 by 40, you've got a fixed environment, dress it up, and you can put 12 rigs in there and go to town.
Really quickly before I let you all go, this is called the esports venue explosion, so there's a boom now. But as we go into the future and more of these things start popping up, do you think the esports ecosystem can handle this many venues? So Kristen, you're up first.
I sure hope so. I'm going to say yes. I mean, with the Overwatch League, we're going around the world, all matches being hosted in venues from China to Korea, Europe, North America, Canada. So I sure hope so. And, we certainly are betting on it. And I think with the explosion of technology, it's only going to continue to manifest from there.
I think it all comes down to programming. Before you decide to build a facility, before you decide to get deep into it, it's about understanding what your programming is going to be, not just what you're going to do in the immediate future, but what are you going to do 3 to 5 years from now, and understanding the fact that looking at Apex Legends, we didn't know that it was going to blow up as fast as it was. We also didn't know that Call of Duty Mobile was also going to blow up ridiculously fast. So these are things that we don't know about yet, and the fact is that there will be multiple different types of games that will be coming out. So being able to anticipate and be ready, but more importantly, if you're going to build a new venue, build a new facility, programming is key. Think through that before you deep dive too far.
Yeah, I think there's absolutely demand out there on a global scale. Right? We launched a affiliate program late last year, and in fact, Populous has designed the first affiliate of ours in Australia, in Melbourne, that's coming online next year. I think there's a significant amount of demand that will only continue to grow. But I think that demand is also what size of venue are you talking about? We, in the last few months, have recently gone through a merger, and now we're listed on the NASDAQ. As part of that merger, we took on investment from Simon Property Group. So one of the largest mall owner and operators in the world. And so we are building out on mall venues with Simon at some of their locations. We'll be announcing the first one of those in a few weeks as far as the location goes. So I think that the size and scale to meet the demand is important to consider, just as well as programming. But I think there's demand pretty much everywhere, and that's only going to continue to grow as game publishers continue to push the envelope and really rope more people into the interest in their IP. On the venue side, we're looking to be there to provide that home for where that activity happens.
Yeah. Jed and I are planning on cornering the entire market. All right. No, demand is there, growth is there, but it has to be smart. There has to be research on where you go into. You can't, the worst thing that's going to happen for this industry is an overbuild, because then you end up with a retraction. And that no one wins in a retraction. But I think under that scenario is that you've heard me spout a lot of statistics. You spend a lot of time figuring out where is the growth, what do they want, how do you respond positively to what their desire is as a gaming, and then build. And then, but be prepared. We spoke, Brian and I actually spoke on a conference not too long ago, and it was a very similar question, and one of the responses was, we don't know what the game is that is going to be popular in 5 years. So build for whatever that happens to be the popular game in the next 5 years.
Yeah, and I think, the industry is formational. It's very formational, right? And we're still early days in many respects. I think, what's exciting is kind of what I talked about earlier. Ultimately, we're trying to create places to build community and to bring people together for just great social experiences. And if you take all the games out of it and just look at sort of gaming and people coming together around these, socialized experiences, these venues are going to be sustainable. And we're going to see, and the only thing I would say is there's not a one-size-fits-all solution. What's going to work in Philly is different that has worked for Judd and, and the new ventures that they're going to be embarking on, and certainly what Corey has done, the sort of things that Bob has done. There's not a template. It's all about a specific market. And whatever place that may be in a big city or on a college campus, there's a lot of different ways you can activate and create a great venue around esports that can grow with a cultural demand and with the evolution of gaming and sports over time. But if you look at what Comcast has done, they've bet big on esports because they see it as the future of broadcast communication. They see it as the future to connect with an audience, and I don't see that going away anytime soon.
Cheers to the future. Give these fine panelists a round of applause.